the criticality of asset performance. Go back to asset performance is really a business intended purpose. So assets, when we talk about asset performance, we're really talking about assets that are designed and then implemented for an intended business outcome. And I think when we tend to think about outcomes in this industry, we think about cost, we think about availability, and then most of all, we think about environmental health and safety. And I think the criticality when we talk about that is license to operate. Think about personal safety. We think about environmental performance. We think about process safety. Those are all critical for that license to operate. And then when we talk about availability is really more of a customer impact. How are we making sure that we're fulfilling our commitments as a company? And I think that's where reliability, I talk about both reliability and predictability, both of those being incredibly important to our customers. So when you say you're going to do it with integrity, I'm going to say what we're going to do and then do what we say. So I think that's incredibly important. And then with the volatility in the market conditions, we all know what those look like, especially today. It's, we always used to say that, today's specialties become tomorrow's commodities. And basically, which means basically today's commodities were yesterday's specialties, is cost performance begins to be very, very critical in the marketplace. So I think in all areas, EH&S performance, which is personal safety, environmental performance, and then process safety, availability, meet our customers' demands, meet the business commitments that we have to our shareholders, which is also the livelihood of our employees, et cetera. And then making sure that we're in it for the long haul. Many times we talk about reductions, et cetera. It's about short term. We have to take care of a short term. I always try to say that you have to make sure you take care of the short term to have a long term. And in that is really making sure that your cost performance is at its optimum, not always the lowest, but it's at its optimum given the market conditions. So that means every day we need to be focusing on reliability. How can we make sure that everything is performing, both people and assets, up to their optimum? When we think about reliability, many times we go right away to capital assets. And we want capital spending. You'll hear a lot of things about, well, we're just not getting the capital we need. I think that the real key part of this of reliability is reliability. We think about human assets and capital assets is the human side, is how do we engage people? How do we win the hearts and minds of people to begin to think differently about every step that we take of our work, every step that we take in thinking about problems is, do we think about how it could be, how it should be, and then how it is today, and what are those gaps, and then what would need to be in place to be able to make that happen? And I think typically we think reliability, someone else should do this, someone else needs to think about this, but it's really what can I do, where I'm at with decisions. And instead of it has to be these great leaps in performance, what little steps can I take every day to make something better? So I think many times when we think about it, we tend to almost position it as capital, but we really need to be thinking about how do we get people involved in explaining what the case for change is and really starting to pull on them and say, hey, we need you to help us solve these problems to become more reliable.